John either, so I don't know.
If he joins us, we'll mark him as he comes in.
Okay.
All right, we should be broadcasting.
What does broadcasting mean? You're opening up to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, call to order then, and roll call.
Are we broadcasting? We're
Yes.
good? Okay. I'm just going to go by the names as I see them on my screen because that is a lot easier. Mr. Baxendale?
Present.
Ms. Peniston? Hope you're muted.
Present.
Mr. Ferguson?
Present.
Ms. Shockley?
Present.
Ms. Langallis?
Present.
Mr. Mushak?
Here.
And Ms. DeMeglio?
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay. This time I printed out the agenda. So are we going to take all three A, B, and C together, or how do you want to do this?
Yes, the zoning commission is
hold on,
treating them
hold on.
as one application.
No, hold on. Before we start, two things. One is we offer our condolences to Tammy on the loss of her father. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. And I want to welcome Tamara here to the team. I look forward to meeting you at some point and working via Zoom right now.
Thank you very much. Look forward
Okay,
to working as well.
thank you. Okay, Steve, so how do you want to do these three things?
Yeah, we can take them as one application. There's three steps. The planning commission is looking at the zoning amendment and the amendment to the zoning map as well. I did send out in the packet that the planning commission received revised zoning text that I've worked with the applicant on. There's probably a few more tweaks that are forthcoming at some point in time, but that's the latest version that we're working off of right now.
Okay, so we're not going to, I don't think we're ready. There's a lot of things going on with this. We're not going to vote on this this evening. This is strictly, we still have more questions, discussions, correct?
Correct. So, you can, we do have David Waters from Building and Land Technology, who's representing the applicant. He is on the Zoom meeting and is available for questions. I'm also available for any questions that you have. Just to give you a little bit of sense of the timing of where things are at. The Zoning Commission has had 2 meetings on this, not in the public hearing forum. They haven't scheduled the public hearing yet. The next meeting where this item will be discussed will be August 6th, which is, I think, is 2 weeks from this week. At that time, I expect they will schedule a public hearing to hear the application. You were also received a couple weeks back a memorandum from the firm of DeCarlo and Dahl, who is the city's consultant in terms of planning and architectural design review. So they provided a report to the commission. I think I also provided a link to the discussion they had with the zoning commission, which I think would probably benefit this commission as well. So as I indicated, at the August 6th zoning commission meeting, I anticipate a public hearing being set. I don't know the exact date yet. It could be later in August or more likely the first Thursday in September. I don't know what that date is off the top of my head. So you do have, I believe you have another month in order to take a look at this. There'll probably be some further changes and additional questions that get answered in the interim. I'm happy to take any questions and or we can allow Attorney Waters to answer any questions the commission may have.
Question, if I may, Fran, have we somewhere got any economic gain of the economic gain to the city and what the estimated number of children will be for our new school? And let me also subline that by saying I'm very much for the macro plan and very much for this type of development.
Sure. If it's okay, I can address that question. There was a report, and what I'll do tomorrow is I'll forward out again the link to all the plan material. So since COVID, what we've been doing is trying to put all the materials up on the website. So the commission as well as the public can look at those. And I believe you did get a packet. In there, there was a report from the firm of Goldman and York, who did an economic analysis on behalf of the applicant. So that is there indicating what the benefits are to the city. It proposed some questions back to the applicant, which I don't think have been addressed yet, which will have to happen at some point during the process. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that, Brian?
It's basically, what's the effect on the school population really, or the number of children? With a third question behind that, would we be providing nursery or pre-kindergarten facilities within that complex, which is pretty large and pretty self-contained at the macro plan level?
Sure. I don't believe they have any proposed on-site schooling or nursing daycare. Not to say that they wouldn't consider it, but it's not proposed. There is a school studies within the plan, which is a separate attachment. And we are actually working with the Board of Ed right now on, getting their opinion on what was presented by the applicant. We don't have any further information at this time, but hope to have that, hopefully well in advance of your August meeting.
Okay. I can also look more detail into tab 5 and one or two other places, but if you want to point specifically to the direction, the tabs or the references, that would be great, Steve. It's a pretty big binder.
Yep, we can do that.
Attorney Waters has done a great job on that presentation.
Thank you.
Also, Steve, one of the questions that I asked last time was the approximate number of people that might live in this development once it's fully occupied.
I might defer that to Attorney Waters. I believe, the whole proposal, if it was fully developed, is 1,300 units. I don't know what they assumed off the top of my head for the number of individuals per unit. So I don't know, Dave, I don't know if you have an answer for that question.
For the record, David Waters, General Counsel at Building and Land Technology. No, I don't have that information myself, but I'll make a note of it again. We do have some pretty accurate numbers as to the total population based upon our other buildings that we've built, including Grist Mill A, which is fully occupied, and Grist Mill B, which is being occupied. So we can probably get you some pretty accurate numbers as to total population based on that.
Steve, what did you say about the, unless I missed it, the Goldman and York analysis and the questions there? Are they being addressed, or did you say they've already been addressed?
So the applicant, as an addendum to their application, provided a report, like an economic cost-benefit kind of analysis that was done by the planning firm of Goldman and York. So that was included and presented to the commission. There were several questions that staff had in relation to that, and before the end of the week, I have to get Attorney Waters kind of what we see as some unresolved questions that need to get addressed at the August 6th commission meeting. The questions regarding the Goldman and York report don't change the bulk of it, just some of the assumptions we were questioning that were within the report.
So how are we going to see? How are we going to see some compilation summary? I'm looking at questions here. So how does that circle back?
So I'll give Attorney Waters, Dory Wilson is helping me put this application together and review. So we'll put a list of questions together for Attorney Waters to address. And then, once those are answered, we'll provide those answers in the questions back to the commission so you could see that. I'll also send you the link after the zoning commission meeting on August 6th so you can get, get a sense of that conversation. We haven't really talked about what will happen at that meeting yet, but that will give you a little further sense of what the zoning commission is thinking as well.
So the zoning commission is getting the same material we are, correct or no, for all these
Correct.
things?
So the report that I sent you along in the meeting packet was pretty much what they got at their last meeting. I just revised it based off some new information that we got since then. And there, the one item is that you're not addressing is the site plan application. That's not under your purview. So I
Right.
removed those items from the materials.
Any thought of a joint meeting at some point? Would that be beneficial to both sides? Zoning and planning?
Yeah,
I'm not-
I see that where that could. I just have to make sure that's not that's actually allowed versus the statutorily. So I can look into that. And I'll discuss it with the zoning commission chairman as well. I don't have an opposition to it. I just want to make sure that's permissible given the state that the application's in with the zoning commission.
Yeah, no, I know. It's we don't want to do anything that's would preclude anything. Just look at it. I was just thinking about it. It's a lot of information. It's good to, to hear different things at different points. What's our deadline for this is what? The August, the second meeting in August, or where are we?
So I anticipate that the zoning commission actually scheduling the public hearing at their first September meeting. As I said, I don't remember the date off the top of my head. Given the complexity and the size of the application, it's doubtful that they'll close that hearing that night. So maybe that's the night that the planning commission could look if they wanted to, even if we can't do the joint meeting, it's also possible to, view it as a member of the public and at least understand what the questions are being asked. So, maybe your August meeting, you have to make a decision. It's also possible you can extend that out till September as well.
But what are we tied to? I'm saying, what's our cutoff? Is it a September meeting, or where is, on time frame?
The safest bet is to make a decision at your August meeting, because it's hard to predict after, possibly after the, assuming they do the public hearing, the first meeting in September, it's possible they could close it at that point. So it's, at that point, they're really not supposed to receive new information. That's probably your safest bet. So if you have questions or items that you want addressed by the applicant or by staff, it's better to get those into us within the next couple of weeks so we can get an answer to you at the August meeting.
Okay, so we got 2 meetings in August. Which one?
Either one. I think either one is safe, as I said, because the public hearing in front of the zoning commission is not going to occur till September.
Okay.
So
I have
actually-
a question.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Fran.
No, go ahead, Mary.
I was just going to ask, because I'm not clear about some of the timing in light of 2 items. Number 1, staff raised a series of issues that I'm puzzled how those questions could get answered by August. Because, for instance, there were some staff comments about reducing the scale of the plan, talking about doing a model, et cetera. So could you please explain some of the recommendations that were made by staff and how that would fit in with an August approval, because we're not talking about very much time. And number 2, this is a pretty big change in terms of zoning. And I'm just wondering, I had sent a question to you earlier, which you kindly answered about when do we expect the new zoning regulations to be going down? And you thought it was going to take like 12 to 18 months, or no, 18 to 24 months, if I recall correctly, yes? Correct. So I'm just trying to figure, because as I'm understanding those new zoning regulations, it's trying to rationalize some things, and this is a pretty big project. I understand the spirit of it, but I do have some logistical concerns about it, and certainly reducing the scale of the plan addresses some of my concerns.
I just want to interject one thing. Mary, you said August approval. So we don't know which way we're going. So it's an August item on our agenda, okay?
You're quite right, excuse me. An August item on our agenda. I didn't mean approval, but it would have to be voted on then. But my point being, I just don't know how to reconcile that timeline with the series of recommendations that staff made.
Sure, so I can address both of those, and Attorney Waters can probably provide a better timeline on the model, because that's something that the applicant and staff talked in the commission talked about probably at the first meeting where they presented. So he can probably provide a better timeline on where the model sits. So in terms of the zoning regulations themselves, we're going to do an update, but more importantly, for your decision making, you're really looking at the plan of conservation and development and seeing if the proposal is consistent with that. I think the applicant makes a strong case that, this type of development is consistent with it. The questions that I think are relevant off of that are at what scale in terms of the density and the height and those details. So yeah, I think that the plan in numerous spots points to the fact that, the North 7, the Glover Avenue, Merritt industrial, office complex is very important to the city of Norwalk. And it's just a question of the scale that's proposed along with that. So that's really where you have to make a recommendation, as well as the zoning commission needs to make a decision on, is this the right scale or not? In terms of staging it or taking it on a smaller scale, again, this is 2 people on staff that are looking at this application. So my personal opinion, just me, not speaking for anybody else, is I'm fine with the overall concept in terms of doing it as one larger piece. Again, to me, it's the bigger questions I'm concerned about are the existing traffic impacts, as well as is this the right scale? So I think those are the questions that hopefully come through in the memo that we provided.
And how do we get those questions answered, Steve?
Well, some of those we can't. Some of those you have to answer, not me.
How do we get a framework such that we can make a good decision about that?
Well, yeah, I think Attorney Waters can provide, a update on the model. So it's possible too that the Planning Commission can send a request to the Zoning Commission to keep the hearing open through, a later date in September in order for you to provide additional feedback. So that way we don't run afoul of any FOIL laws. So that's another thing to think about. But, I think in terms of scale, there's things you can do to mitigate that. And the density question, to me, I'm not afraid of density by any stretch at all. I think the density, the issue comes back to traffic and how do you mitigate the impacts of the density. The density numbers are just numbers. It's just what the impacts of those density are and how those are mitigated is really how you have to deal with it.
Other questions are popping up from
Nope.
anybody?
Nope.
So Madam Chairman, just if I could for a minute, just
I have a
bit of
question.
an update on the model and the timing on that.
Yeah.
We're actually working on a couple of different things. One of them is the city's consultants, DeCarlo and Dahl, had suggested that it would be useful to have sections because frankly, where our development is really kind of in the valley between Merritt 7 and the residential and other properties that are to the west. And they thought that it would be helpful to have sections. We've actually got those just about done. And we have a couple of perspectives that we've been working on as well. So that people will be able to see from different directions what you'd actually see. In addition to that, we are working on getting a 3D model, computer generated model that would allow people to kind of fly through the whole thing. That's taking us a bit more time than we expected because getting somebody to actually work on it is rather challenging, but we expect that we'll have that within the next few weeks.
Okay, I have a question for you. I know you're looking for, or you've mentioned last time, an approval of the master plan as a whole for the area. What are your downside if it doesn't get approved that way? Give me pluses and minuses.
Sure. So the pluses for us and for the city, frankly, is that then there's certainty as to what is being proposed. It gives you the opportunity to then use that as the plan, and it gives us the ability to use that as the plan. We still have to meet all of the criteria for site plan review for each of the buildings, just as Merritt 7 had to for each of their buildings. But it allows for an understanding that that is the contemplated development. The minuses, if it's not approved, are that there's a significant amount of infrastructure and a significant commitment to public type improvements that would be made based upon the master plan, things like the park areas and what have you. If we don't have the commitment of the commission that they are buying into the master plan, then those are rather expensive items that we would not be able to otherwise provide. And so we need to know that there is some certainty that we're actually going to get the other type of development that will give us the ability to afford to make the improvements that we're talking about. Otherwise, frankly, what we end up with is we end up with the same way that Merit 7 did, that each one is done as a separate application for each building, and it's done piecemeal. The problem with piecemeal is that then you don't get a fully integrated plan. There's always the possibility that, you know, we certainly intend to be around for the long haul, but if there's a property that somebody wants to purchase, we sell it off and let them do the development themselves, and it doesn't become the unified development that we're really striving for. What we're really trying to do is to create community in this whole area. And the way to do that is to have a plan where everything can be thought through, including access, including amenities, including the mix of uses, so that we can do it in a consistent and cohesive way rather than piecemeal.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, you said instead of doing the piecemeal, how about phases? Doing a draw plan with phases. Doesn't necessarily have to be one after another, but just the process of 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Well,
in that area.
The actual development will be done in phases. We're certainly not going to build, 1,300 residential units all at the same time. The city and the economy just couldn't take 1,300 units being put on into the market at the same time in any event. Not to mention the fact that having 7 tower cranes in the air at the same time would be rather an expensive proposition. So it will definitely be phased, and we expect that phasing will take a period of years. It's not something that we expect that within 2 years the whole thing will be built. But we need to know that there is an end point that everybody understands. Our biggest concern, frankly, is that we're able to describe this project to all of you and to all of the zoning commission, and everybody says, that's great, we think that's wonderful, go ahead. And 3 years from now, there's a completely new commission, and the commission says, gee, we're not agreeing to that, we don't understand it, and we don't want you to do it. And now we're committed to it, and we've committed to the improvements that we're making, and but we don't have any buy-in from the city.
So this could be done within 5 years or less?
No, my belief is, and theoretically it could be done within 5 years. My belief is that it's probably more like 7 to 10 total.
Okay.
And how do you answer the question from your perspective, if we were looking for a lower density, what options can you all offer?
Well, we don't think that a lower density is the right way to go, frankly. That being said, you're going to make your recommendations, and we'll have to see if we can live with them. But our density is based upon what is currently permitted in the executive office zone for a commercial planned residential development for each of those buildings.
Okay, the aim would be to vote on this in August. That's what I'm thinking right now, since so if the commission, questions or whatever, please get them into Steve, think about it, reread the material. Now, one clarification for Tamara. So Steve, since Tamara hasn't been here, she can certainly ask questions and stuff. You just can't vote on it, correct?
I think if she were to watch your prior meeting, that she would be eligible. So, and I actually sent her the link this afternoon. So at some point in time, she could watch, watch that and be eligible to vote. And
This
so,
would be at the August meeting?
yeah, so that could be the August meeting, and if you, and I think per Attorney Waters' comments, if the model isn't quite ready, or if there's a lot of unresolved questions, it's very likely the zoning commission could hold the hearing open till their second meeting in September, which I believe falls right after your meeting that's scheduled. Or, so I think that there's the ability to hold it off another month if you were not quite ready in August.
Yeah, but hold on. She wasn't a commissioner until, what was it, July? I don't remember when she was, what was it, July what, 10th? I don't.
Yeah, it was after the meeting, your last meeting.
Yes. So since she wasn't a commissioner, this is a question I don't know the answer to. I don't know if you know. Can she look at any data prior to being appointed?
I would think so, but I can confirm with the city's attorney too, if you want to get an opinion.
Yeah, confirm so that we're not, violating anything for anybody. Since she wasn't a commissioner, can she look at prior data and then vote on this? Or does the clock start when she was appointed and we go on from that point on?
Yeah,
All right.
I'll confirm that. Easy enough.
Okay. Are there any other questions right now for Attorney Waters or anybody right now from the commission?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, David Waters.
Hello, Michael.
I want to know what your feeling is about the housing shortage that's been studied in Fairfield County and Southwest Connecticut in general, and how that relates to the cost of housing for the average renter. And is there a housing shortage? Do you sense there's a housing shortage based on demand? Because apparently we hear buildings are still filling up quickly. Obviously the pandemic is a hiccup in all this, and I don't know, nobody really knows if there's going to be a long range impact from that. But do you ever see a scenario where we reach a point in this area where the supply meets demand and prices stabilize, or as a developer and with the experience you have in Harbor Point, et cetera, do you see the demand continuing because of our proximity to New York City, et cetera? I hope that came through kind of clear.
It did. There's a couple of different answers to this because there's nothing that is an everything fits all sizes anyway. Certainly there is significant demand right now. Whether that's a blip because of COVID and people leaving metropolises, or whether that's something that is a longer term philosophical choice that occurs remains to be seen. One of the things that I think that we're specifically looking at, and we frankly started designing our project long before COVID was on the horizon. I remind you that part of the reason that we think that this is a really good place and a good project is because it's supportive of the office buildings, the Class A office buildings at Merit 7 and at the towers, in a way that other properties are not. And to that extent, it is somewhat unique. That's not to say that Sono buildings aren't being filled. I think that from what I understand, they are, or that East Norwalk buildings aren't going to be filled. I think they probably will as well. And it certainly seems that we have not yet gotten to the point, and probably won't for the near future at least, where supply and demand are equal. But I think that the thing that's important about our project in particular is the fact that it is addressing a specific demand, which is that the corporations that we're trying to attract and maintain and retain in Norwalk, in these Class A office buildings, are really looking for proximity of live, work, play for their employees. And so to that extent, I think that the demand that we see is not likely to fall off one way or the other, as long as the corporations are there. And frankly, by having this type of development, our type of development that we're proposing, it will help to make sure that that demand is also there, because you'll be attracting the office tenants as well.
Thank you. That was a good answer. So there would be a kind of a built-in motive for you to maintain affordability as much as possible. As you know, you'll have market rate, but market rate here is always considered unaffordable for so many. But you want to attract, since you own the commercial side as well, you and corporations do want affordable housing nearby. That's well documented and well established. So is there an incentive here for you to keep this as affordable as possible?
Well, there is certainly an incentive to, you know, there are two incentives. One, obviously, as a property owner and developer, we want to be able to maximize our income. But on the other hand, there certainly is the attractiveness and the selling point to the various, you know, Fortune 500 companies to be able to say, look, you have not only good quality housing, but also affordable housing for your workers that really want to be in this area. And so I think that it is important that it be both ends of the spectrum. One, obviously, as a business person, but the second one, to support the businesses that we also are in owning and maintaining the office buildings as well.
Thank you very much. No more questions.
This is Tamara Shockley. I have a question. What is the extent of green space in this development? And is there any outdoor recreation facilities? I also have the second question. Are your residences going to be 100% rentals, or are they going to be condominiums, which would result in a tax base for the city?
Sure. So kind of in reverse order, at this point, it is all rental that is contemplated, which is not to say that it would remain that. Again, the way that our plan is created is basically to have placeholders essentially for these buildings. So if it turns out that Amazon wants a building, we're happy to change one of the residential buildings into an office location instead. If Hilton decides they want to put a Class A hotel at the north end of Glover Avenue, we'd be very happy to change the residential building that's contemplated there into a hotel site as well. Any of those will generate a tax base. It's not just condominiums as opposed to rental housing. There is a significant amount of tax generated by a multifamily rental building, and it's somewhat deceptive also in that you don't see things like car taxes. You don't see things like taxes on from people that are purchasing goods and what have you. So the change isn't that significant in many ways. As far as the open space is concerned, your staff actually asked us to try and calculate how much open space that is open to the public we are providing. And it's in excess of 20% of the entire site that is open to the public. Now, remember that, and this goes back to the prior question of what are the pluses and minuses of a master plan. If we did this as a standard standalone application, each site the way it is, there would be no obligation to provide any public space. There's an obligation to provide open space, which is green areas that are not covered by parking garages and buildings. But there is no obligation at all to provide open space. And what we're providing and proposing is areas that will be open for the public, for parklands, for walking trails, for other things as well. And that's in addition to the private open space that would occur on top of things like parking garages, where you would normally see pools, plazas, things like that that are just for the residents themselves. So The simple answer is that we have done an analysis on the open space that would be public open space. Part of that was also in conjunction with the city's consultant talking about how we could enhance or maximize that as well. That may have been a piece of their analysis that Steve didn't or did provide to you, but they had made a couple of suggestions as to how that might be maximized, and we've been evaluating that as well.
Okay, any other questions on this topic? Okay, so we're gonna get the comments, questions, whatever, get them into Steve. And as you read through this stuff more than once, as I've been doing, whatever comes up, please send it in, and then we can address it. Okay, thank you, Attorney Waters. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and we'll look forward to responding to your further questions.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 824 referral, Department of Public Works. Who's on for Public Works?
Hi, Fran. Anthony and myself are here.
Okay, very good. You want to give us a summary here of what's going on?
Sure. Anthony, do you want to do I start or you do?
I will just kick it off and then turn it over to you. Hi, Fran. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good, thank you. And Chair and members of the Planning Commission. So to keep it brief, the synopsis of the 824 referral is during construction of the Sono Mall, there was a portion of the right-of-way, I should say, that now resides on the private parcel. I believe it's 1,500 square feet. There's 1,200 square feet on West Avenue, and about another 200 or 300 square feet on I think it's North Water. Is that correct, Vanessa?
Yes, it's about that.
Okay, so during construction, the way the final survey was developed, our right-of-way falls within part of the private property. So this referral to your commission tonight is for conveyance of that 1,500 square feet from the Sono Mall, from the private property owner on private property to the city. And really what you're talking a very, very, very small amount of area. It's literally a few feet inside to the roadway that we're looking to convey back to the city, meaning that part of our road, the way that the map is depicted, part of our road resides within the private property. Now, obviously, as a municipality, we want the titles and the ownership to the roadway for maintenance and reconstruction purposes and any other future improvements. So this action before you is really for your concurrence to allow the Sono collection to convey about 1,500 square feet of land to the city, which really is comprised of pavement for the most part, at no cost. Vanessa, if there's anything that I missed or you'd like to add, please feel free to do so. But
And the only reason that happened was because of the alignments of the lanes on both streets. So that's why we have to widen a little bit for the new lanes. The second lane on North Water to go to West Avenue, and then on West Avenue when you go now to I-95. So that's why now that lane ended up being on private property. So we don't want to keep that way. Otherwise, all the time that we need to do any work on it, and even plowing would have to have some kind of an encroachment. So we're asking for the rights to have the road for us.
And also too, that was the background also is that was required as part of the state's approval for Connecticut DOT's approval. Part of the approval was that the lane widening on West Avenue, which was required by the city, but it was implemented into Connecticut DOT's permit. So when the DOT goes back and looks at this, they're wondering, hey, why is part of the public right-of-way now within private property? Well, the answer is because the lanes were widened, but so it's just really a really small adjustment of land.
If the commission pleases, Darren Callan from the Law Department, I'm online here to assist in any way possible. Everything that Vanessa and Anthony had mentioned is correct. I had asked Enrico Constantini from Holleran and Sage, who represent the city on the Sono collection transaction, and Deb Brancato from Carpenters Florence, who represented the developer. They're also on the line. They can answer any questions you have, but this really is a very straightforward transaction. It's a sliver of land that overlaps the roadway, and it's simply to transfer that sliver of land that overlaps up into and through the curb cut, so that our ownership of the road conforms with the boundaries of the road effectively. And it would be affected by way of a simple quick claim deed, standard statutory format under Connecticut general statutes. It's a very, very straightforward, simple transaction. But Attorney Constantino and Attorney Brancato are on the line. They could be added as presenters. I understand if you have any questions for them.
I just have a small one. Fran, can I ask a question, Fran?
Oh, go ahead.
I had a quick question. The city actually gave a piece of the North Water Street prior. Is this the same parcel or is this a separate parcel? Because in order to get them all done, we actually gave up the roadway right away to the development. Is this a part of that or is this not?
I actually don't know the answer to that question, but Deb or Enrico may know. Steve, can you add? It's probably Deb Brancato would be able to answer that question pretty readily. Can you add her as a panelist?
Yeah, they're already both added. They just have to unmute themselves.
Deb, are you there?
Yes, I think I'm unmuted. Hi there, everybody. Deb Brancato from Carmody. We represent Norwalk Land Development. To be honest, off the top of my head, I'm not recalling the portion that the North Water Street that you're referring to, but I think we're talking about a different piece at this point.
Yeah, it's the same road on North Water Street. I just want to know, the city owned it first, and then we gave it to Sono Collection. I just want to know, was that the same piece of parcel that we're looking to acquire back? It was just a simple question. Just didn't know if it was the same one because we owned it before. So.
Yeah, Commissioner, I don't know the answer to that question. The only thing we're looking at here is, I mean, the city owns both roads in which these small parcels are adjacent to, and it's just these little parcels. So we do own these roads. I think that kind of partially answers the question. And the acquisition is just to conform the boundaries of those roads, so that there's no overlap of Sono Collection ownership into the city's road.
Hey, my question is very simple. Any costs at all, hidden or otherwise, is this costing the city any money?
Not that I'm aware of. Enrico, can you speak to that at all?
Sure. Hi, Enrico Costantini from Halloran and Sage. Our office represents the city with regards to the transaction. I hope you can hear me okay. The quitclaim deed is being transferred at no cost. Going forward, obviously, the city of Norwalk will own that portion of the road. It's a small sliver, so the city will maintain it. And that's part of the reason why the city wanted it and asked for it, and why the state of Connecticut, I think it was OSTA, asked for it and made it a part of the approval, was so that the city would have the right to make any changes it needed to the roadway, maintain the roadway, and that a portion of the roadway did not reside with the developer, or with the mall, I should say. But there's no cost to transfer the property to the city. The city's taking it at no cost.
Yeah, Fran, just a side note, when this came to us, I met with Enrico's partner, Eric Bernheim at Holleran and Sage. We set up a meeting with Department of Public Works. Vanessa and Anthony were on the call, among other individuals. They looked at everything from the business side and what they needed and desired with it, and vetted it out. But in that process, I requested Attorney Bernheim to work with Attorney Brancato to do some environmental analysis, just to make sure there were no environmental issues related to this acquisition, just as a matter of due diligence, and that came back clean.
Okay, very good. So quick claim deed will say 0 amount will be set, and no cost at all to the city. That's what I heard, right? From everybody.
We'll recite rest of the consideration of $1, but effectively, yes.
Okay, consideration of $1. Okay. Anybody have any other questions on this one? If not, I'm going to propose that we accept the resolution to approve here as stated. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Steve Ferguson.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, then the motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I had to plug the thing in. It was on low power here. Okay.
Is that the hotline to the White House, Anthony?
And that big phone. I was going to ask about the big phone, but
Yes, it's the bat phone.
the bat phone. Okay,
Commissioner Gordon's phone.
there you go. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, next item on the agenda is, let's see, Subdivision 3596, Scribbler Avenue, Coventry Place, release of bond for required street trees. Where are we?
There was one outstanding item that had to get addressed by the applicant, and that was the planting of street trees. Staff went out and inspected last week, took pictures. Looks pretty good. I can show them to you if you have any interest. I can't say that I'm familiar with the subdivision application, but I had somebody check into it. So happy to show the pictures if you're interested. Otherwise, I would just recommend moving the action.
No, so there are no open issues. That's what you're telling me, right?
Correct. Yep.
When you have pictures handy?
Yep. One sec, sorry.
I don't have a resolution here, not that I can find in the packet of, for this.
Yeah, I didn't put anything together. I would just, it'd be as simple as saying authorize the release of the bond. That's all that's needed.
Okay.
So here's the, if you can read the notation on the map, I can blow that up if it's too small. But it does say, indicates the area on Scribbler where they wanted some street trees in that area. So I just have to stop share for just a second and switch up. Give me 1 second. So they planted some trees, but they also put in kind of like a hedge in between. So it's pretty screened. So I don't know if, to me, it kind of meets you can see the trees. If you can see my mouse icon there, there's the trees in there. And then they also planted the hedge in front of that closer to the road. So staff feels it's, more than screened at this point.
Who went out there from staff? Just curious.
Brenda from Conservation.
Okay. Any other questions on this one? Okay, then I move that we move this all forward and approve for the release of surety. Do I have a second?
Seconded, Brian Baxendale.
Okay, thank you. Any, let me go the other way. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's okay to move forward. Thank you. Okay. Our next item is adoption of the East Norwalk TOD plan. So take us through what are we, exactly what are we approving, all of the above. And Brian, you were part of this team, and if you want to give us a just a few words, if you're not prepared, that's okay.
Sure. I think the plan has got to a very good stage. There's concern which is quite legitimate in relation to congestion. East Avenue has always been a slight problem, and the cemeteries, the rotunda there, etc., can be a challenge, especially if we open up density. But density could be well controlled. We're on 2.5 to 3.5 level buildings, and already around that area we have quite a few 3-story buildings. So it really then is a function of, in my opinion, it's in good place. We need the parking sorted out as well as congestion. Think that one through in great detail. Clearly the development of the East Avenue with the bridge, the station, one, it will widen the road, which will reduce congestion, maybe. Also, of course, there could be increased train traffic with the increased size of the station. But all things to be worked through. I'm very keen, and I think Steve may address this, but just like with the POCD, we have a review of this in, say, 3 years' time to see how we are going. Because theoretically, people are grabbing at numbers which says, if every single piece of space was filled to every single square footage, we could have X number of people and obviously Y number of cars. That probably is highly unlikely to happen in the real world. But obviously putting the review in place in, say, 3 years out to see how we are going could be very beneficial. People also see exactly what a nice 2.5 to 3.5 story building actually looks like. They talk a lot about Greenwich Village. That's got 3.5 story buildings within 50 feet of Greenwich Village Main Street. In Rowayton, you've got 4-story building and 3-story buildings and 2.5 story buildings, as well as obviously single-story buildings. So, and is it congested? Yes, but it's a lovely place. We have Tammy lives in Rowayton. I'm sure she'd agree. It's a great little village there. So, my view on the report is well articulated, it's well laid out, but people do have concern, particularly which is legitimate about possible congestion, how we handle it, and public parking. Although the plan does call out a lot about how we should address the parking issues as a subset of the overall. That's my view. Steve can add to that.
Sure. So what the end stage is, we've gone through this. It's probably 18-month planning process. Brian has been your representative on that study. Kind of knew where this was kind of my crystal ball. I was pretty good at, looking in the future and seeing where this was going to go. We knew there was going to be opposition about height and density. So what we proposed was, in my opinion, and I've stated this ad nauseum, where I'm at the point where I'm sick of talking about it, frankly, where I think it's moderate and, considered. It's, we're proposing 1 additional story from 2.5 to 3.5, and a density that is increased over what's allowed currently. It's not nearly what you could do in several other areas, particularly what we were just talking about up at Merit 7 area. And, they're talking about 15-story buildings, and we're talking about 3.5. So for an area in proximity to a Metro North train station, I think what we're proposing is very modest. The whole area, I had somebody run the numbers today. It's well over 400 acres of land in the whole study area. We're looking at amending 7% of that for the new village district zone. So it's a pretty modest proposal if you think about it in the grand scheme. Also, we fully understand, and I appreciate everybody's concerns about traffic and congestion on East Avenue. It's a legitimate concern. I've walked East Avenue a dozen times going to the train station in the morning when I've seen how it's backed up. The good news on East Avenue is there are road improvements planned that will improve the level of service on that road. And those are not like pie in the sky plans. Those are near to midterm plans. So we think that'll improve things. To Brian's point, this won't get built all at once. A significant difference between what we were talking about earlier in this area is you've got a lot of smaller parcels under different ownership. So that's going to require consolidation. Also, a significant factor to consider is that everything proposed here is going to go under stringent design review. And if you want to seek that additional story of height and the additional density, you have to give the city back things that they asked for in terms of amenities, in terms of a good design. So it's not going to be, you know, I don't want to speak out of turn, but there's not going to be something that's just thrown at you and you have to accept it. This goes through a much more rigorous process than any other area that we've seen in the city. So I think the process laid out is a good process. I think it's the appropriate process. I understand that there's people that don't want to change. There's a couple different camps I've seen that have come out of this. I think there's a group of people that I think have received misinformation where they've come back at me with emails saying like certain parcels are going to have 150 units of development when you run the math at its like most basic configuration and they can only get half that realization. And then there's people that just don't want this area to change. So as I said, the East Norwalk area, particularly along East Avenue, is about 7% of the entire plan area. So it's a really small area. The majority of the study area is great, but the East Avenue area needs some help. And there's a reason why it looks the way it looks today. And the consultant looked at it and said, if you keep it under the current regulations, you're not going to see the change you want. There's no economic, financial incentive for anybody to do anything differently than what's there today. So that's why we've proposed what we've proposed. I'm happy to field any questions. Really, so what you're looking at tonight is just advancing the TOD plan and the POCD amendments forward to public hearing. You're not voting approval of anything, you're just advancing it so it can go to the next step.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Steve, were there any other parcels that would be equivalent to the 230 East Avenue property in terms of scale? Because I think in some of the literature that was distributed by, you know, one of the neighborhood organizations, I think it was ENNA, it had a picture of the 230 East Avenue project and said, this is what the city wants more of in East Norwalk. But I felt that I couldn't think of any other parcel where that was possible. So could you either verify that or suggest that maybe there are other parcels that are that as large as the, it says 230 East Avenue has, I believe, 219 units? No, 175 units. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Based off that, the only other, you know, the other large parcel that's come under public discussion as part of this process is the the Wells Fargo lot, which is at the southern end of the study area. That's not quite as large as 230 East Avenue. You know, I'm drawing a blank, but I did the numbers the other day and it's only 80 something units I think you can pull out of that under what's proposed, as opposed to 230 East Avenue, which I think is at least double that. And if I'm wrong on my numbers, I'll shoot you an email tomorrow to confirm that. That's not to say that people can't consolidate parcels and get to that stage, but none of the existing parcels in that whole village district that's proposed equate to the size of the 230 East Ave parcel.
Thank you, and I have one more question.
Go ahead.
I remember 10 years ago, a lot of opposition to the Norden Avalon. And I believe was a little over 200 units. And there was a petition and the commission, I was on the zoning commission at the time, and the room was packed with opponents. And what they didn't realize, I think, and they may have figured that out afterwards, was in a residential building, not everybody leaves at once. They don't all get up and go to work at the same time, and the traffic is meted out. And where there was an industrial use at Norden, which was where Fran used to work, and Norden Systems, and then Grumman. But when that released, it was a whole shift change. You know, it was a factory, and everybody would go leave and come back, and they had to have. There was gridlock on Strawberry Hill, and apparently they had to have police directing traffic. Fran, you probably remember this. And so I remember specifically that Nord and Avalon opened. It was 90% occupied when they had their big grand opening with the ribbon cutting. And one of the opponents lives right around the corner on Strawberry Hill. And I said, are you going to go to the grand opening? He goes, no. And when that building gets filled up, it's going to be gridlock. I said, well, it's 90% full. And he didn't even know that. So it was nearly full. And there was no impact, really no impact on Strawberry Hill or on the neighborhood. All the gridlock, all the fear of giant traffic jams. I mean, it was crazy. And honestly, they said the same thing about the bike lane on Beach Road. There were photos distributed. There was a petition with 500 signatures. We don't want a bike lane on East Avenue or on Beach Road. And it got killed by the administration at the time. This is also 10 years ago, by people who were shown photos of a traffic jam at the Norwalk Boat Show. And the organization that didn't want the bike lane said, when this opens, this bike lane goes in, it's going to destroy East Norwalk. It's going to be traffic jams for miles. We don't want a bike lane in East Norwalk. A lot of the same people who are the same voices and faces that we're hearing from now. And the bike lane was to improve public safety. It was for children from Marvin Beach and around the city to get to the beach safely. It was no big deal. Eventually, it took 8 years. It got built, but there have been no major impacts at all. And Nord and Avalon, there have been no major impacts. So the point I'm making is a lot of times there is fear of change and fear of density, but does not translate into, I'm looking at a 4-story or 3.5-story building right now, Victoria Arms, in a D zone right next to the C zone that I live in, a 2-family zone. And I'm near Flax Hill and Golden Hill, and I'm surrounded by thousands. I think I have 4,000 units within a couple blocks or 3 blocks of where I live. And it's all the condo complexes on Flax Hill, on Fairfield Avenue. It's a huge number of high density units around us. And we don't have gridlock in our neighborhood at rush hour. I can get around just fine. And you know, there's always traffic. We're in a city, but the fear that these number of units is going to cripple East Avenue, I think, is unfounded. And I just wanted to share that because based on experience and case studies, and where I live in South Norwalk, I'm looking at everything kind of fits together in a historic neighborhood, but we were able to increase density quite a bit here. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Well, Mike, I mean, it's a great comparison, Mike, but you got to look at this. There's not too many avenues that get into East Norwalk corridor, unlike South Norwalk. You can hit it from the Darien side, the Post Road side, East Norwalk and Central Norwalk. You know, East Norwalk, you're susceptible to the to 95 and Westport because you're along the water on that side. So it's kind of limited, a little bit less limited than, it is very limited compared to that area that you're talking about.
Perhaps, but
just,
we have
just
not,
a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, Mike. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, just based on what I'm looking at the different roads to get into.
But don't forget that we have the railroad tracks that divide South Norwalk, and you can't actually get over the tracks except on Low Street, and so we are very limited actually, and 95. So we have a few bridges over 95 at Fairfield and at Taylor, and one at Cedar. But basically, if you look at our landlocked position in South Norwalk, we are squeezed between the railroad tracks and 95. We also have these issues. I'm very aware of this because the 3 bridges were replaced about 8 years ago, and we had the traffic coming through the neighborhood, et cetera. But I'm just saying that a lot of people, we have hundreds of people that walk to the train every day. Obviously not now in the pandemic, but in the normal times. Literally there's a stream of pedestrians down our street in front of my house. I know because I wave at them and they walk their dogs before they go to work, but they go with their backpacks and their briefcases down to the train. And the East Norwalk train station was rated by SWERPA in a study about 10 years ago as the highest pedestrian access to train station on the entire corridor from New York City to New Haven. So
I can see that.
It's never going to be a car destination train station because there's no parking garages there and the parking lot's very limited. So this plan to me encourages pedestrian use, and in terms of it's the way that it synchronizes with mass transit. The same way our neighborhood does, and the same way our neighborhood in South Norwalk, where I live in Golden Hill, has been planned over the last 50 years with higher density units without any giant transformation or degradation of quality of life. We actually have a vibrant business scene here and small commercial centers, and
yeah, I see your point, Mike.
It's very walkable.
Yeah, I see your point, Mike.
Okay, I have a question for Steve. Steve, you and I talked about before how certain groups are using pictures which are not the picture they use. This is what's going to be like. Did you ever talk to them about it?
That happened pretty early in the process, where there was a photo shown in advance of one of our initial public hearings, where they showed like an 8 plus or minus story building and said, don't, kind of come out and voice your opinion on this stuff. And, that was unfortunate, because that was not something that anybody on the study committee was talking about. And it was kind of, you couldn't have picked an uglier building, basically, in addition to being so out of scale to what we were talking about.
It was a Soviet Union apartment block, poured concrete, and it was the ugliest building. And I asked a board member of ENNA why they did that, and they said that's a good way to get people out to meetings. So spreading misinformation was actually the strategy by a board member of the ENNA to draw up opposition to the plan. And I think that fact needs to be known by everyone who is potentially going to vote on this.
So that's my point. The point is, has that misinformation via pictures or whatever, is that still going on, Steve Kleppen? Or did you ever?
I don't know per se. I mean, some of the emails that I get, to me, that there's, I think some people some of the emails are reactionary to stuff that they hear, and it's not based on fact. And I try to point that out to them in there, but and there are some people, I acknowledge that there are some people with a legitimate concern about changing the character of the area, or changing the, really decreasing the, mobility for vehicles to move in and out of that area. I understand that concern. The big thing to me with East Avenue, while it is congested, the level of service in that corridor is not what it is, like we're talking about with the prior application. It's not to that point. So even though it's not great, it's not to the level of service where it's not functioning. And something important to point out, each application that gets submitted, they're going to have to submit their own traffic study. And the city has the ability to hire an outside peer review consultant to review that traffic and scrutinize it as much as they feel is appropriate. And if they come back and say that it's inaccurate, or the level of service is going to decrease, then the zoning commission shouldn't approve that application until they can fix that traffic problem. I think that's really important to understand. I don't think the public necessarily believes that when I say it, but I think it's important to note.
Okay, is there any opposition to moving this forward for a public hearing? Okay, not hearing any, so move it forward, which will be, the public hearing will be when, August?
Yeah, we'll talk about the schedule after we get through with the next item on the agenda.
Okay, so it's approval to move it forward. Okay.
You need to adjust your camera. I'm sorry, you can't see your face.
I know. I'm having problem with the wire here. It's like it's anyway.
Sorry.
That's okay. How's that?
There you go.
No, it's better. We can see color of your eyes, Fran.
Okay.
It's a beautiful blouse you're wearing, but it's a little disconcerting to talk to the blouse.
I'm sorry. Now you tell me. Okay, so next on the discussion item is 50 Washington Street Park. And is anybody on the line with that one?
Yeah, you've got several people, Brian Bedoli from Redevelopment, Eric Rains, who is the landscape architect, You also have DPW here that can address questions. I'm going to step out for a second, but though you're in very capable hands at the moment.
Okay, so the reason why for the rest of the planning commission, I think I voiced this before, but and I don't know if everybody has months ago, while Tammy was still there, and many months ago, I think might even been last year, I'm not sure. There were things that I kept on waiting for 50 Washington Street to blossom into the beacon of Sono that we had talked about when we spent many excruciating hours, some of you will remember, debating this project and how much it was going to cost, and it got ugly in some sessions. And so I kept waiting for this project to come. And then I asked for the plans because I sat across the street from it, and I looked at what was there, and you all can prove me wrong, but I looked at things that were missing. Okay, they're missing from what the plan that was before us. So trees were missing. The benches were missing. And I'm looking at the plan right now. I'm sorry if you guys don't have it or not. I'm not sure. You know, walkways, brick sidewalks, tables, all kinds of things that were not there. So to me, when things get changed so drastically, and from the last numbers that I heard, 1.8 million was spent or whatever, and this was supposed to be the beacon of South Norwalk. That's why I voted for it. You know, even though the price tag was expensive. So I've talked to Steve Kleppen, and I wanted this for the whole commission. I was offered, gee, I could come in and they could address my concerns. It's not just my concerns. I wanted to bring it to everybody, that when things drastically change, or the design changes, or things got taken off of what we've seen into the plans, it needs to come back to us. That's where I'm going with this, okay? The process of who makes a decision when we go forth and we're imagining one thing and then something else happens. I understand there were infrastructure things, so I'm interested in hearing. We did all kinds of things. You know, I'm looking at the owner of 50 Washington Street. Did they contribute anything? You know, we made the whole area there much more pleasant and than it was before, but it's lacking what was on the plan here. And somebody can address why those things were taken out. I mean, all I see right now is, and some of you may disagree with me, is grass and rocks. Okay, all those stones, all those things were never on the plan here. It was supposed to be tables that people could sit down. It was supposed to be a whole different thing. So now we got rocks and grass and not all the trees. So feel free, whoever it is, to address some of those things.
Hey, Fran, this is Brian Bedole. How you doing?
Okay, how are you? Thanks
Good.
for joining.
Yes, thanks for the invite, and hello all the commissioners. I think it's my second time meeting you all. As you know, I've recently started here with the redevelopment agency, so I'm picking up this project, you know, midstream. We're actually at the back end of it. Want to unpack as many details as I can for you all in regards to some of the questions that Fran's posed. So I have Eric Rains, as Steve mentioned, who was involved in the landscape, who's the architect, the project architect for this effort. And also Vanessa Valaderes from DPW, who can highlight some of the infrastructure items that you mentioned, Fran. So just sort of high level in terms of kind of, you know, took a look at your email that you sent. I think one point of clarification is just in terms of the overall project cost, and I'll explain kind of how it arrived at where it is today. The actual contract amount ended up being about 1.24 million. So it was a little bit below that 1.8 number that you referenced. There were some change orders that occurred to the tune of $241,000. So the total project is about 1.47 million. And the reason for that is as a result of some value engineering that occurred during the design process, because you had a couple things going on. You had Number one, the costs were a little bit higher than expected with the original bid sets. And number two, the Washington Street improvement project that DPW was managing, they wanted to sort of coordinate that better. So I could have Eric speak a little bit to the specifics on the design set, and then Vanessa could chime in on some of the infrastructure items as appropriate.
Hi,
And I'm
everyone.
not blaming you, Brian, okay?
Thank you, Fran. I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So we issued, there's a series of points in time where drawings were issued that were modified over the course of that time in response to things like pricing and things like reducing, with the intention of reducing the pricing. And Brian Bedolla, we put that summary together. Was that circulated?
Yeah, I had forwarded that over to Steve, just in terms of some of the specific items that weren't included.
Okay, so
Yeah, but it didn't come to us though. I don't have it here.
It might have been from
Anybody-
Tammy. Tammy had sent that Steve a little bit back. I'm not sure if you received that.
So
Yeah,
let me-
I can't
I'll just-
recall it. If not, I'll send it out tomorrow.
I'll read through it real quick so you can, we put it in a sort of a chronological order as things were in and then out of the job. On March 1st, 2018, we incorporated the DPW Washington Street Improvements Project into the park design. And that include that, and if you're familiar with that project, it's a narrowing of West Washington. And that, at that point, we showed 2 chess tables with 2 benches each. We had 8 bike racks along the sidewalk at the street edge. And we had precast seating and benches, precast seating around the fountain. So there were never tables and chairs, there were benches. And at that point, we had concrete pavers around the fountain. That drawing set was never actually bid, but we then issued on June 11th night of 2018, where the main change was the exclusion of concrete pavers around the fountain, and that's where the crushed stone was used as a material. Then the bids came back. That drawing set went to bid, and then the bids came back, and it was over budget. The project was shelved until winter. And then on January 10th, 2019, drawings were reissued again with the following changes. The DPW project was separated from the park project. So it became 2 projects again versus 1. The 2 chess tables, and as a result of that, the 2 chess tables were deleted because without the road widening project, with the road widening project, basically the road gets narrower and the park gets bigger when that project occurs. So the chess tables are, if they were installed in anticipation of the road widening project, they would have been installed in the middle of the sidewalk. So the decision was to not install them and to make them part of the road project. The 8 bike racks are the same thing. Because the park isn't as wide as it's going to be, when that project occurs, the chess tables would have been installed in the middle of the sidewalk.
They're not on a plan in the middle of the.
I'm sorry, your screen froze as you were talking.
Fran, you there? Fran, you there?
I'm there, but I don't know what's wrong with the.
We can hear you now.
Steve,
We can hear you now.
can you guys see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are 2 more items at that point in time, the benches around the fountain that's the point in time where they were switched to, instead of being concrete benches, to stone benches that were on hand and available from the city, as a cost savings measure. And then finally, the fountain. So that's the last change. So so the difference is, and again, it would be helpful if we were confident that we were all looking at the same drawings, but without the drawings, that's the sequence of events and the modifications to the drawings that occurred.
This is the drawing says June 11, 2018. Now, you've addressed benches and whatever. The trees that were supposed to be planted, it's even in the area where there are less trees, okay? And what about the brick walkway right there, the brick on the sidewalk, and all those stones which are there right now, all those rocks, okay? Where they were never on here. What's the cost of those rocks? They're there. Those big pieces of stone.
They were free because they were gathered from another project in town. The trees, there's no change in quantity of the trees, and the benches originally were precast concrete bench that were substituted for the stones because the function of the stones is the same as the benches were, and we were able to use the stones without cost to the project, and they serve they serve the project in the same way.
How about the brick walkways?
Fran, I can address that. Again, although I wasn't involved with this project in the past, what Eric says is true. What happened is that on that set, probably on the set of drawings that you guys saw, was the one that has both projects combined. By then, DPW was getting this project approved, that it's a lot SIP grant, where the crosswalks would gonna be done. The curb a granite curb will be installed and make the street a little more narrow, giving more space to the park. And then those brick pavers crosswalks will be installed. And also there's some street lighting that would be added to the area. Unfortunately, DOT did not allow us to bid that together. And then we had to break up the project again. We thought that if we bid as one project, we're gonna end up having an even better price. But DOT thought that would be very confusing. They didn't wanna mix. So that's why they first got combined, then went back and got separate. So although the crosswalks are not there yet, they're coming. So this project is still in the pipe. We got some comments back from WestCog last week. There's still some adjustments that we need to do on the roadway design, and we should be sending back hopefully in another month and a half, and we're hoping that we can bid this project during the winter to probably start construction next spring. So with that, after that project that is 100% funded and it's another $1.7 million, you're gonna see all those crosswalks. I believe it is about 5 extra trees, street lighting, and a new curbing. So that will address all the DPW part of the project.
So let me stop you now, Vanessa, okay?
Sure.
So this brings me to my point. You're saying it's gonna cost another 1.7 million, right? When this project got separated for whatever reason, and things got changed so drastically, that's my point. When does it come back to the Planning Commission? And where's that 1.7 now gonna come out of?
It's a state funded, so there is no money from the city side to this. It's a WestCog 100% funded project. So the engineer estimate is 1.7. So there will be no city costs associated to this part, unless if we add no participating items to it. As of now, we're entertaining do a little water park across the street from it. That wouldn't be part of that project. And if we develop that, then we need to come back for extra funds. But for those crosswalks, and there will be no city money into it. I understand about the change on the design that should have come back to you. Unfortunately, I wasn't the person on the time to make the decision. I can tell that from now on, and Anthony is also on the call, if that happens, any major project coming from our department that ended up having a major change on the scope, will definitely gonna come back and pose all the changes to you.
Well, Steve Kleppen, that's my whole point is not just with DPW or whatever. When these big projects come to us, we are expecting something to look the way it's supposed to look or whatever. Then when all these other things happen, what is the process to come back to us? Is there a process? Does a process have to be instituted formally? I mean, I'm sure Vanessa and DPW and stuff, but how do we work this so it doesn't happen again?
That's an excellent question, which I don't have an answer for. Because for these kind of projects, at least from my department's perspective, we don't really have any oversight in them. So if things happen, change orders and such, we may not be directly involved with it. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. It's a good question. I have to come up with an answer, which I don't have right now.
Okay, that's fair. Is it with legal, whatever it is, but and I'll open it up to the rest of the commission, whatever you guys are thinking of. But my thought process is when things come to us, funding and whatever, and then things get changed. And what's the threshold of a big change versus a small change? I look at this as big changes that it needs to come back to us. So any comments from the commission?
It sounds like the extra money is coming from the state. Does that impede any way for us to have influence on it?
Now I'm talking about what Mary, when we looked at this thing, I don't know if you were there or not.
Yeah, I was there when it was initially done. I think a lot of the confusion was the change orders. The original numbers that we had went from 500 to 800,000. And then when the number jumped and we didn't see results, we asked questions that we didn't have any answers to. So I think that's why all eyes are open at this point. But it seems to me, Eric, I have a question for you, Eric. I know you do great work around the greater Norwalk area. How far along you think we are in this process to finish this project? Do you foresee any major bumps or hiccups or any time delays?
No, we are pretty much done. And actually, Brian, you can jump in here too. I think the discussions now are about the contractor turning the project over to the city. So I would call it built at this point.
The question I have for you too is, you have some boulders on your project. What's going on with that? So the city just plopped some boulders on your project?
Around the fountain?
Yeah.
Well, we had benches.
Why they put it there?
We had benches all along around the fountain. And then but when we had access, by not using the benches that we had originally specified, I think we saved something like $80,000.
Oh, okay.
And so these brownstones were available from a bridge abutment that happened elsewhere in the city. And so since they basically are the same height as the bench and I thought had a little more character, I had no problem accepting them when they were offered. And thinking that it's the same stone that's in the abutment of the bridge nearby. And functionality, it provided the same level of function.
Okay.
I don't know. To me, it's like a Stonehenge, and 80K is a rounding in this type of a project. So, anyway.
Can I talk?
Yep, go ahead.
I have a question, a comment. So I'm a landscape architect, and I ride my bike around Brooklyn Bridge Park and West Side Highway, all over New York City, that has some of the top designers in the world working on the various piers, et cetera. And I would call this park design world-class. So I want to thank you, Eric.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
You will see these aren't just rocks or boulders. These are basically the deconstructed parts of the bridge abutment that's right there at the trestle in South Norwalk, the iconic trestle. And these are matching stones to that. You will see this kind of treatment all over the city, all over the world, all over Europe, all over Asia, where you use recycled building elements. It's actually a sustainable practice. And so they may look like rocks to some people, but they are actually places to sit, and they're artistic. I think the park design needs a couple of years to grow in, as any park does. If you look at Ryan Park, the same thing, the trees are all young. And you know, I have to explain to my clients all the time, the vision that you see on the plan, when you see a diameter of a tree, it's drawn close to its maybe a midlife diameter.
Yeah.
But when you actually go out there, the trees are young because you can't plant mature trees on a project. It's unfeasible, and actually it's not even good for the trees. It's better to have them grow into the space.
Right.
So, but I think that the functionality of the park is greatly increased. I was doing a grassroots improvement on that park for 20 years since I moved to Norwalk. I actually drove a backhoe into the park with Mike Mokay's permission about 10 years or 12 years ago, and ripped out the dilapidated benches, put them in a dumpster that the city provided. And I had all the proper insurance and everything, but I donated my services because the park was so neglected. And that was a city, you know, that was partially by the city and by various organizations that had decided they were going to contribute to the upkeep of the park, but then they never showed up beyond the initial, you know, PR event. And so there's been an ongoing problem with that park. And then the steps were 2 levels. There were a giant stairway in the middle of the park before. They were all uneven. They had settled. They were 50 years old. They all had to be rebuilt anyway. So the solution, the design solution, was to make it more functional for events, for concerts, for art shows, etc. And I think that the program requirements from the city side, from the redevelopment agency, were provided by Eric in this design. I realize it doesn't look like a park. It doesn't have rose gardens, and it doesn't have, you know, I mean, it's not like Matthews Park, where I work on a lot of gardens there. I've designed and donated gardens all around Blackwood Matthews, around the contemporary printmaking, right by Stepping Stones. I work on those gardens, and they're flowery and they're Victorian, and they're meant to fit into a kind of Victorian park.
Mike, hold on one second.
Yes.
You were there with discussions, and you know where I'm coming from. So I'm not questioning, I'm not looking for flowers and stuff, right? So it's the process of things.
No, but I agree with you that I'm totally in agreement that big changes need to come back. But what I see down there, when I was sent a list of things that were not in the park: trees, stone dust paving, fountain, and I'm scratching my head because I'm thinking all these things are in the park. They were all provided. So I'm not sure where this information came from, that none of this stuff was provided. It's there. It may not look like what we envisioned when we were looking at the plans, but most of it's there. The brick, obviously the brick sidewalks aren't there, and the chess tables. But I think that this park, when the pandemic is over, which we hope is sooner than later, and events can happen, we will see the genius of this park design, where it will provide a venue for events, whereas the old park did not. And so I applaud the design. I think I can't wait for the fountain to start going at some point. I guess that's on hold right now, right?
Well, Vanessa, I have a question, Vanessa.
Go ahead, Steve.
The actual street signs, when this park was being designed and it was budgeted, we had an allotment for street lighting on that side that we got a grant for. So some of the things that we did in conjunction with this park, Just want to know what the process is for that, or did you just combine that with the crosswalks and everything else?
Maybe this street lighting, maybe this grant that you're talking about, because there
Yes.
will be some street lighting improvements. I don't have the details because I don't have the drawings in front of me, but I know that we're gonna get all the street lighting, the ornamental ones, including the ones for the park as
And
part
that's
of
why,
this grant, yes.
and that's why Fran has multiple questions, because there was a lot of things going on that we was told that it was all about timing. That's why the special appropriation came. So just be mindful of different questions are coming from
I
different.
think that, and you know, I totally understand, and I think that's a fair question. I think that probably what happened was, by then they were very hopeful that they could have both projects out as one, and probably after that is when there was this letter from DOT saying that they would not allow that, and there was not only one ask, there was a lot of back and forth. I know that they tried to put this project out as one thing a couple of ways, and then DOT didn't allow. Plus, sometimes we are ready, but they take much longer on their review. It's still like it's almost a year, and we still haven't got the green light to go do the crosswalks that now we're hoping that we'll get for the winter.
Okay, I'm good. Steve Kleppen, you're gonna look at the process. That's what I'm most concerned with when major things happen, that we see him again. Any other questions?
Tammy has a question. Unmute yourself, Tammy.
Hi, thank you everybody for being there. I'd just like to reiterate a little bit of Fran's frustration, because the cost on this project just, you know, really went out of control. And if it weren't for the miracle that the state is giving us money on this project, this meeting would be very different. You would be coming back and asking us to approve more money for the park. And I think we have to, you know, kind of live within our means. And I know it's not always the planning commission that sets the budgets, but these redevelopment projects have a way of getting away from us. And even though I think the end result is going to be very nice once everything is done, it could be very different if the state didn't give the city the money.
But Tammy, just I think Brian can jump in on that, but actually I think that what you guys appropriated for the project, they are under budget with the original number.
Okay, maybe there's a,
yeah.
Right, yeah, so there was the 1.8 number that was thrown around. I think the actual contract value ended up being 1.2 as a result of pushing some of these other costs to the state grant.
Yeah,
So
but it was
actually,
originally 750 from what I remember. So there's, Brian, there's a lot of history, so I wouldn't.
Yes, don't start that.
Yeah, a lot of thorns on our side when it comes to cost with the park, okay? So I would leave that alone.
fair.
I can.
I'm going off the numbers that I got here, so I apologize if there's anything in the history that I'm not aware of.
I can see if Dave Davidson's available if you want him to chime in.
Thank you, Steve Kleppen. All right, any other things on this? I appreciate you guys being on, and it gets frustrating after we spent, like I said, there's a lot of background to this, and that you're not familiar with, Brian. So, and I appreciate you and everybody else being on. Any other questions for them before they let them go?
No, friend, but I just want to iterate again that, you know, you have my word that all the time that if engineering has already asked for some kind of money and there is any major change on the scope, I don't mind coming back and share what is happening. But I just need that you guys give me a definition of what you're going to consider major. Because as you're aware, a change order in a project happens all the time. And usually, even when we approve our own projects through the DPW committee, we always have a 10% buffer that we can authorize that extra money to be spent without going back to DPW committee. So maybe we have just to work some kind of design guidelines of what you guys would think that will be considered major. And I believe that Anthony and I will have no issues to come back and share what has been happening.
No, I believe that. So we'll have to work that out with Steve Kleppen and on, you know, putting some guidelines together. I don't know what the threshold is. Okay, so we'll work it out and hopefully be fair to everybody. Now, Mary, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I was just wondering if, not as a requirement, but out of courtesy, when the project's done, could we see what the final budget was for doing the project? Because I think that would help us see kind of a process from beginning to end and give us some guidance moving forward. I know it's not an obligation, but out of courtesy, it might be nice to see how the budget turns out for the project, because that would help inform us in the future about thinking about these projects.
I mean, if that's part of the procedure, that's completely fine. We have everything that you would need. The project's wrapping up as we speak.
All right, if there's nothing else, we're gonna.
I just want to ask when the fountain's going to be turned on.
Ah, yes, Mike. So the fountain, so I can give you an update on that. So what ended up happening is that's the last little bit here. And the company that provided the actual fountain cannot, they're based in San Antonio, and they supplied some electrical parts that are having issues, and they've been banned from traveling because of COVID. So we've had people out there locally twice a week, every week for the past 4 weeks, trying to sort it out locally until we could get them out. But I just sent them an email today, so I'm pushing to get it going as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, but don't forget, the mayor's advising of a water shortage. So hope it's a recirculating fountain.
Yeah, there's that as well.
Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you for coming on, and we're releasing you. You can.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's anything further I can do, please just let me know.
Thank you. Thank you for being on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so we have, let me see on the agenda, capital budget schedule. Steve Kleppen, what are we talking about here?
See if I can find my email. Hopefully that's there. Sure. So there is, so scheduling was really the last item on the agenda regarding, oops, I just the wrong button. That's not good. Regarding the POCD amendment, as well as the change to your normal schedule. So you're currently the third Tuesday of the month, and the finance department has asked if we could look at moving your normal meeting night starting in 2021 to a date that better lines up with their special appropriation calendar. And
yeah, but tell me what that means, okay? I don't know what that means, that we have to line up with the special appropriations calendar.
So I don't have the exact dates lined out, but how I think what happens is if they want to send you a special appropriation and they want to get it approved in a certain time frame, their meeting comes before your meeting. So then they have to wait another month to get the appropriation approved. So their recommendation or request is if you move your meeting up before the, before the second Tuesday of the month, then that could be accommodated. So I took a quick look at, the available calendars and trying to forecast where meetings would be available if and when we're allowed to meet in person again.
Yeah, but hold on. What is their meeting? What meeting are we talking about? Their meeting?
I think that's the Board of Finance. Yeah, I think that's when they're looking for. I'm not sure if that's the council at the end or that's BET. I'm not sure exactly which one it is, but it's the last step in their process.
Is Angela on?
No, I didn't ask her to come on, but she told me that it's got to occur before the second Thursday of the month. So that really leaves the first or second Monday or the first or second Wednesday of the month.
I can't. I worked my another board meeting because we were meeting on Tuesday. So Mondays, I'm not in favor of Mondays right now. I don't know how everybody else is, but it will be what? The first Monday, the second, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so it would be the first or the second Monday or the first or the second Wednesday. Those are the two, or actually I should say four dates that would work in conjunction with the finance department schedule.
I have
You don't
another
have to give me
obligation
an
the
answer
first,
tonight, so
the
if you
first,
need to-
I have another obligation the first Monday of every month.
Yeah, so I'm not in favor of Mondays. How's everybody else on Wednesday?
I can do Wednesday.
Wednesdays are better than Mondays for Steve Ferguson.
Wednesday's fine with me.
Wednesday?
Okay, so we could look at the first or the second Wednesday. That doesn't really matter to me.
All right, so look at the first or second Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
Does that, when did the zoning have their meeting? They have them on Wednesdays, but what, the third Wednesday?
Right, they're the first Thursday and the third Wednesday.
Okay, so you wouldn't be impacted by that. So for us, you're gonna,
no conflict.
no conflict. All right, so you're gonna look at the first Wednesday or second Wednesday of the month.
Yeah, I'll just so we're clear, I'll send out a follow-up email so everybody, if they have, you don't have to decide tonight. We usually put the calendars for the year together in October. So I'll send out another email just to clarify, and if people want to double check their calendars, we have time.
Well, yeah, well, if you're gonna, send us before October, since we're talking about it now.
Yeah, I'll do it this week.
What the schedule, no, I'm not meaning this week, but I'm just saying, send us what the proposed dates are.
Oh, the actual dates, okay.
Yeah, I want to see, put the proposed dates together so everybody can look at calendars, holidays, religious holidays or whatever. Everybody's, everybody's got different schedules. So if you're going to put anything together, you're going to send us, put the actual dates down so we can all check what conflicts that we may or may not have, okay?
Okay, we can do that.
Okay.
And the second part was the modification to the schedule I'd sent out as part of the POCD update calendar. So there's a tricky thing with Norwalk has, in their charter, has some specific requirements in terms of meetings for updating the POCD. And they don't conflict, but they're not quite in alignment with the state statute in terms of what you have to do. So it's a little tricky trying to accommodate both, and also trying to get this plan amendment and the POCD updated by the end of October, which is the timeline that the state of Connecticut has given us to complete the process. So I put forward, hopefully you can see my screen, with some scheduling suggestions in which this could be accomplished. So the first one is obviously tonight, 7/21, where you move forward the POCD amendment and the TOD plan to start the public hearing process. What this would require would be having the first public hearing either on August 3rd or August 5th. So that would be a special meeting of the Planning Commission. We really need a quorum for that. And you could tell me if you want to have a full presentation by myself and possibly Emily from the Harriman Group, or we could just not do that. We did 2 full presentations to the public last month, which I sent the links out last week or the week before. So those are available. We can do the repeat performance if that's something you want to see. I'll leave that up to the commission to decide. So that's the first item to discuss. And the second one is that we have to have a second public hearing. So we're really looking around August 11th for that. And what you could do and then is cancel your August 18th meeting. So you don't end up with 3 meetings in August. You just end up with 1 extra meeting. So you're not any more meetings than I had proposed in my memo to you late last week. So those are the first 2 items you need to decide on.
So what's the day of the week when you said what, August 3rd or
Or the 5th, which I believe, I'll double check, but I believe it's a Monday and a Wednesday.
August the 5th is a Wednesday.
Okay. So the 3rd or the Monday is the 3rd or the Wednesday is the 5th.
So I would go with the 5th on Wednesday and explain how, which I haven't been in one, a public hearing on Zoom here. We will follow, how would we, how do people would, how does that work, I guess?
So you can tell me, based on your discussion, do you want to have myself and or Emily present the plan? Like I said, like we did the full plan presentation twice so far, so you can go view that. It probably won't be much different than what we indicated there. And then for the public hearing is whether it's Michelle or Brian, who's ever co-hosting the meeting, will unmute attendees to the meeting, and they are allowed to talk. And then you can decide, like, would you give them a couple 3 minutes, or would you just let them speak? It depends, a lot of it depends on how many people want to talk. So then they would be allowed to speak. You don't have to take answers, or excuse me, respond to any comments. Once they're done, you unmute them, and then we have somebody, preferably Diana's there, and she is taking minutes. And then at the end, we collate all their comments, and you have to decide whether you want to make changes to the plan or not make changes to the plan.
Okay, so are we in agreement on the 5th, being that Wednesday?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not hearing any no's, so any problems with, so let's make that the 5th. Are we talking about 6:30 start, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, we can move it back, but 6:30 is, pretty normal time right now.
So on the 5th, 6:30, and there will be strictly a public hearing on the TOD. Now, I think how long is an introductory thing? I'm not looking for half an hour or so, but
I was just going to say 45 minutes is what we've been doing when we do the full presentation.
well, it's been done. I don't know. How does the rest of the group feel? Do we need I think 45 minutes is too long in a public hearing. Summarize bullets, or I don't know. What's your thoughts, group?
I think, Fran, it would be a good idea for some type of overview, because probably a lot of the people that are going to join that Zoom meeting don't know anything about the plan whatsoever.
Right.
And based on the amount of misinformation going around, that I think it would be great to have a full presentation the night of the public hearing, so that people that are listening in and watching will understand directly what the plan is about, and not what people are telling them the plan is about.
With 45 minutes with Steve's normal level of presentation.
You're supporting the 45-minute presentation? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so I think just Mike's point, that you need to give, it's a very major study for us to do. So obviously sharing that with the city shouldn't be shortchanged, in my opinion.
How long for public comment?
Well, if we start at 6:30 and we have a 45-minute presentation, right? That takes us 7:15, and well, I like to end at 9 usually, depending how many people want to speak. But we haven't cut people off in the past. But I don't know yet on timing which way we're going to go. And it also depends on how many people are signed up to speak. I've never cut anybody off, but I don't know about a time limit or not. So it all depends. So if we go to presentation, we're at 7:15 or so, and then we start the public comment. Could take us to 9, or like I said, I've never cut that off short. So
yeah, just for reference, when we did the other public hearings, I think they were, that 9 o'clock time frame is probably in the range. Keep in mind we do have to hold that second public hearing, so that maybe if that's a week later, if anybody doesn't get a chance to speak, they have the opportunity to do so at that next meeting. And we don't have to do the presentation at that second meeting. I think that's not necessary. There probably are going to be a couple other of your normal business items on that second meeting. I know there's another 824 that's come in, and I think I just got a 2-lot subdivision that pretty simple, but that needs to get put on that agenda as well.
So I'm okay with the full up presentation, and I would aim for, I would say no later than 9:30. So give it, if we start public comment, public hearing, 3 hours, 9:30. That's when I would say we've had a lot of time.
Well, in fairness to all the speakers, shouldn't there be a 3-minute time limit so that everyone has a chance?
Mike, if you remember, even though we've had rooms full of people, I've always allowed people to speak at least 5 minutes, 6 minutes, remember? So depending on how many, I've never done 3 minutes. I've always given extra time. And in fairness to everybody, if people, come out to speak, they should be given a little bit of time to do just that. So I'm not, if we have 100 people, I don't know, we might. So I've been go ahead.
Well, most people, when we had the 2 meetings, were pretty good. I mean, a few people went past like the, roughly 3-minute mark, but people were pretty respectful of everybody's time. You're going to get a few, but everybody was pretty, pretty cooperative.
Well, yeah. A lot of this process, sadly, has been politicized. So I expect to hear lengthy commentary on subjects that are not even related.
Well, if they're going to go not related, then we will, it's not going to go that way, put it that way. So determination on timing, to see how many people actually want to speak. But I've always been very liberal on people speaking, as you know. I haven't cut anybody off. But if things go, sideways on different topics and stuff, then we'll have to, rein people in.
Well, we won't know how many people are hoping to speak, because we're not going to have it's not going to be like an in-person public hearing with a sign-up sheet.
Well, let me ask Steve. Steve, how do you control that? How have you been doing the public hearings?
Actually, it works. I actually think it's a bit better in one sense, because sometimes when you have, when there's a group of people and, they're exercised about something, what I noticed at a couple of when we had the in-person meetings, there was a lot of shouting from the back and, just, not out of turn, but, not letting the, questions get answered. But from this, you can control who talks. So it's one at a time. Somebody raises their hand through the Zoom platform. The moderator, unmutes them and allows them to speak. And then once they're done, they usually mute themselves or log off, or they just get muted. I have to say, it actually works really well.
Okay. We'll set a time limit, but we'll probably more closer to 5 minutes than 3 minutes. Okay, what's the other date that you're talking about?
So the charter says you have to hold 2 public hearings, which we did when we updated the POCD last year. I threw out a date of August 11th, which is a Tuesday, to hold the second hearing. And then you could go ahead and cancel your August 18th meeting, so you don't have to meet 3 times during the month. There's only 1 extra meeting. So that was just a date I threw out.
How's that work for everybody? Any issues?
I'm good.
Since I'm not going to Europe, yeah, sure. I think that'll be fine.
Okay, very good. All right, so we have the 5th and the 11th. 5th being just a public hearing, the 6th being we have some planning commission business. So will we take care of that first, or how do you schedule that?
Yeah, so it's actually the opposite. So on the 5th, we'll do the full presentation followed by the public comment, and that will just be the POCD update and the TOD plan. And then on August 11th, you'll first do your normal business, which I think is an 824, and hopefully no other ones come in before then. And then that 2-lot subdivision. And then you'll continue the public hearing on the POCD.
Okay.
And what's
All
the
right.
date? The 8/6 is for the planning committee of the council?
Then the planning committee of council will hopefully hold their public hearing on September.
No, Mary said it's the 6th of August. No, that's for us. It's
Nope,
planning.
6th of August is planning committee.
That's why I can't read it very well. That's why I'm trying to clarify. 8/5 is us, 8/6 is planning committee of the council, right?
Right.
And then 8/11 is us. So we only have 2 dates, 8/5 and 8/11, correct?
Right, correct.
So what's happening on the 6th with the planning committee? You're presenting.
I'm going to give them an update and then hopefully, see what they want to do in terms of going forward.
Okay, so for our business, it's 8/5. We have the full-up presentation, 45 minutes, and then we have the public hearing. And then on 8/11, we have, all these things are starting at 6:30. We have our planning commission business first, and then we have continuation of the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody have any questions on that, what I just said? Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so can we move on to the next item, or you still got anything else, Steve, on that?
No, we'll have to address September, but we don't have to do that tonight. We might have to move the meeting around a little bit, but we don't have to deal with that tonight.
No, we won't deal with that tonight. Okay, next is the industrial zone study update. So is that going to be Steve or Tammy giving us some thoughts here?
Steve.
Yeah, so just everybody's edification, the contract was signed. I actually have a call set up with the consultant tomorrow afternoon just to start getting the ball rolling in terms of setting up the schedule. But yeah, we're ready to roll on that. It's going to start tomorrow, technically.
So just to remind everybody, Tammy is our planning commission representative on this, what are you calling it? Task force group, or what is it being
Yeah, it's the
called?
oversight committee, for lack of better terms.
Okay, so that's the industrial zone oversight committee, and Tammy as our planning commission representative.
Steve, did you say we are starting tomorrow?
Yeah, technically it starts tomorrow because I'm myself and Amelia, that's works with me, are just going to start going through the schedule with them, and
Okay.
then from there we'll probably set up a meeting with the oversight committee to further introductions and talk about process and next steps.
All right, you haven't announced that meeting yet.
No, we haven't scheduled yet. Yeah.
I didn't miss it.
No, you did not.
Okay, thank you. Had me worried there for a moment.
Okay, moving on, we have, I'm going to tell everybody I did not read the minutes. I missed them in the, as I just printed them out tonight. If everybody is, we can defer to the next meeting, or if everybody else read them, I didn't read them, I'll abstain. I don't know which way you guys want to go.
I read them. I did not have any corrections. But
Everybody else read
No
them?
corrections.
You read them? Okay. Everybody else read them?
Yep. No corrections.
All right, so those of you that read it, make a motion to approve. I'm going to abstain because I apologize. I didn't see them as the attachment.
okay, I'll make a motion then to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, we can wait until Fran reads them. There's no rush. We often wait a couple months to approve minutes, right? I mean, Fran, would you want to read them?
I'm going to read them anyway, but I guess I don't want to hold things up.
Before you approve them, I mean, if you want to make a change, then we have to, it gets more complicated once they're approved. So let's just pass.
I'll rescind my motion.
Sorry.
It doesn't matter to me. I was like, whatever you want to do, Fran, I don't care.
All right, so we'll move. Steve, you have you okay with us moving him forward to the next meeting?
That's fine with me.
Okay, so we'll move these minutes, we'll look at them at the next meeting. Thank you. Comments of director,
Nothing further.
okay? Comments of commissioners. I saw on the website the, not our purview, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway. I saw on applications pending, there is an application in for 93 Winfield Street where the Bank of America used to be. And can I say anything about that, Steve, or not? Did you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, sure, I don't see why you can't. You know, it's not a matter that gets getting referred to your commission. So I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know. I would urge you guys to take a look at it. It's Brian, you know, you've been on the task force and stuff, and to me, it's an example of what doesn't fit with the neighborhood. And I've looked at the, so look at the renderings and whatever. I know that things don't always end up, but I said, it's not going to come before us. And it's in East Norwalk. It's on Winfield Street where the Bank of America used to be, which has been razed to the ground. And my own personal feeling is I'm not happy with it. And I live in East Norwalk. So just some thoughts for you if you want to take a look at it. I don't know how often you guys look at pending applications. And then I also looked at the Norden property. There were a few of us that were presented with a different application last year for that property, which would have come before us. Now, is this application there going to come before us? That's there now, Steve?
no. So the commission, some of the commission members saw a proposal for that site. And Fran, you may have a better recollection of the time frame. It's at least 12 months ago, maybe longer.
Yeah.
That concept is no longer on the board. So they have a new application that doesn't require, it's a special permit, but does not require a text amendment or a change to the zoning map. So it's not coming to you. The 93 Winfield is actually, Michelle is going to be doing the review on that. So the pressure is entirely on her shoulders to look at that. I will say that the TOD plan actually recommends rezoning that property to a residential zone that would not allow that density. So
exactly.
I think it kind of supports the plan. So I want to thank them for that.
But, I mean, Steve's made the point that is in the residential area, which should not be affected by the village plan. In fact, it should be residential. So I'm not quite sure what's going through. So I'll look at it, Fran. Thanks for bringing it up.
Higher density residential.
Yeah, take a look at it, Brian, because it's just a sore thumb. Well, Steve, based on what you just said, so can anything affect that project or no?
Well, you can't say it's sore thumb. It's pretty much it's not conducive to the TOD. I guess that's the stance, correct?
Yeah. So actually, that's what I think what Fran was asking, which is I think. I'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually asked. I don't have an answer yet, but I actually asked our attorneys today. You know, since that area is under consideration as part of the plan for rezoning, can that be a factor in the zoning commission's decision? My guess is probably no, but I'm not sure because that plan's not adopted yet, and they've submitted their application prior to the plan adopted.
Well, let me ask a dumb question. I used to go to that bank and wait in line, and there was traffic coming in and out of that bank all the time. Didn't it have a drive-through?
Yes.
Yeah. So doesn't a bank, a branch bank with a drive-through, generate a lot of traffic, and as opposed to a residential use? Because not everybody, like I said earlier, not everybody gets up and goes to work at the same time when you have a multi-unit. You know, people work at different hours, and some people work from home, and I'm just wondering, like, why was the bank not an issue, but residential is?
I don't think it's a traffic issue. I think it's I think it's the building site layout design issue versus traffic.
Yeah, I don't think
So,
I'm not
Steve,
bringing it up. I'm not bringing it up as a traffic issue.
no.
But
See,
go ahead.
I mean, I'm a little bit flexed on this because we're about to do the plan. That's meant to be a residential area. I'm shooting from the hip because I haven't seen the design. But if it doesn't fit in with what our perception is of that plan, which we're about to approve, we should have some means of getting through to the zoning commission and putting a hold on it.
Yeah, I just don't know if they can use that as a reason to deny it. I don't want to speculate too much since there's a pending application, but if that was a concern, typically the way the law works, if you get your application in before there's a regulation change, you're not bound by a pending change. You're bound by the laws that exist at the time of the application.
So we better get our approval pretty fast.
So did that have to go through a zone change then, back to residential from commercial?
No, because the existing commercial zone allows the density they're proposing.
So it's like 4 little houses or 4 little multifamily condos? Are they for sale or for rent?
Michelle might know more than me, but I think there's 17 units that are proposed, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it's 17 residential units for rent, I believe.
You know, I know that I've been shot down on this a couple of times and I brought it up before, but why are these developers only developing rental units and not condominiums? And I know Nora said the banks aren't lending, but with the horde of people coming out from New York City right now that want to buy, I just don't understand it. And, you know, talk about building wealth and all of that stuff. It distresses me that we're just seeing so many rentals that, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I would think that East Norwalk in particular would be more conducive to condominium ownership because of the proximity to the beaches. I think that would be a big draw for ownership. But I don't know why no one's actually proposing that. I think as part of the outreach of the plan, and it's in the comments that are in one of the appendices, and I don't know who stated this, but I think there was a developer that they talked to that indicated there was something with the city's tax structure that made it less advantageous to do ownership versus rental, but I'd have to double check on that comment.
And it's a totally private development. There's no subsidy in here.
Correct.
Okay. Well, at least it's got one thing going for it.
Okay, so anyway, look at it. It's under pending. And then the other one, there's a new proposal under pending as well for the Norton property. And it's a 330,000 square foot warehouse. And I don't know what the product is, Steve, but then you would have, this is not coming in front of us, 18-wheeler trucks coming and going to fill up. So what's the product? Do you know?
They have like approximately 8 different tenant spaces laid out within there. So there's different users within that space. So they don't have a specific tenant or tenants identified at this point, but I think what you just raised will be one of the major issues will be the truck traffic and where that goes, how that's perceived and handled. I think we've already identified that and probably will engage our peer review traffic consultant to look at that and study the implications of that.
Yeah, because if the trucks are getting off exit 17 and they're coming up, just as a thought, Saugatuck, making a left, if they're getting off exit 16 or exit 17, and just imagine, 18-wheelers coming up. That would be a concern.
Yeah, I will say this, and I won't say what we were looking at, but because the city's often criticized for being reactionary, but myself and economic development was very proactive on this site, trying to get a different user in there. And we actually thought we had a user that would have been a complete home run for the city, but the deal fell through. But so, yeah, we're not sitting idly by on a lot of this stuff. Some of these, sites we're trying to, get something in there that will benefit the city and not
Well,
just.
I hope you're looking at, bringing companies in, not just to there, bringing, I don't know if anybody's looking at that,
Yep.
bringing
Sabrina
manufacturing, whatever, and bringing
Sabrina, who
jobs.
works with Jessica, looks at, that's kind of what she does.
A manufacturer.
Yeah, I'll, you know what, it's probably a good idea is I'll probably have, I'll talk to Sabrina and see if she's available to come to one of your meetings and kind of update you on what she does and the company she tries to recruit and what her process is. That might be helpful for some of your thinking.
Yeah, I'm not sure, my video is stopped, so I don't know, we're just about the end here. Can you hear me? Does the microphone? Okay. It's okay if you can't see me. Any other commissioners, anything else from the commissioners?
Just a quick question that regards to that Norden site. Did the town of Westport did not successfully get their application through to put the housing down on the other end where the conservation land is? You know what I mean, Steve?
Yep.
Is that correct? That did not go through? Or
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I can find out where that's at. I don't know.
It did not go through, and there's 3 acres on the Westport side. So it did not go through. The planning and zoning didn't approve it, and I don't know if there's any appeals or whatever's going on over there.
I'm sure there definitely will be appeals with that.
Right. So it's not the conservation zone, Tammy. It's 3 acres of land on that side.
Right. Well, I was just thinking about that in terms of the tractor trailer trucks getting into the Norden site. As a, if that went through, they'd probably be looking to cut through there as well.
No, that wouldn't be possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, Tammy, it's your turn.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn for Fran?
You're making the motion.
I'd like to make a motion. I'm joking, Fran. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a
second?
Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Be well. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Welcome, Tamara.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Tamara.
See you all again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.